Now it's finally time to start making your first Instagram graphic. The first thing that I noticed as I'm looking at my design is that there is a watermark on this lemons image. I don't want any watermarks on my Instagram feed, so I need to switch this image out for something else. One place to look for free stock images is stocksnap.io. They have great professional quality images that you can download from there. And we also already went over the photos panel on Canva. So for now, that's what I'm going to use. I'm just going to search lemon, and I'm going to replace it with one of the free images. So this image right here is free. As you can see, there are a bunch of paid ones. There's this one, slices of lemons, that I could use. I am going to use this first one. I think it looks great, so I'm going to drag it. And like I said, it will create a dotted rectangle, and it will replace the image that was already there. I'm going to go back just so you can see another way of doing this. If I had just clicked on the image, it will just bring the image in as a separate element, but I want the image to be a background, so I need to make sure that I drag it in and place it into the placeholder and let go. Now my image is there. If I want to edit which part of the lemons is shown, I just double click and then I can drag. I don't really have a preference at this point, so I'm just going to hit the OK button. And then the next thing that I'm going to change is, I had said I really liked that one template that had half image, half object. So I'm going to change this yellow square into a rectangle. First, I need to ungroup it so that I get rid of this gray border square that I have. I don't really like that one. I'm going to ungroup, and I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to resize, so I'm just going to drag on these little, where you see this little rectangle at the top of the box. If you bring your cursor up to there, you'll see that your cursor changes from an arrow into 2 arrows. So I can just drag on that and change it as I wish. Say I know that I want my rectangle to look exactly like this, just larger, then I'm going to want to go up to this corner circle and drag out, and it will adjust the width and height of the rectangle proportionally. So I can do that. For now, I'm just going to use this one. You'll also notice that Canva has snapping. This means that it'll automatically line up your different elements to certain grids. For example, if I pull down, it's showing me that the center area of the box is that pink grid right there, or you can just pull past it and ignore it. I'm going to pull past it and ignore it, and I want this to be at center. As you can see, when I pull down to center, and you'll feel it more when you're doing this yourself, but it automatically snaps to the center line, which is right there. Great. So now I have that sorted out. I want to change the sizing of this text. As you can see right now, the text is all grouped together. I don't want that, so again, I'm going to go in, click on one of these, and click ungroup. Then I can mess with each of these individually. I'm going to make this text a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to put a fake website in there. So I'm going to say makinglemonadeblog.com, and I want to change what this text says. I don't really want the cursive. Maybe I'll bring it back later. So for now, I'm just going to pull it over to the side. I'm going to take this text box, and I'm going to write, "When life gives you lemons." I have just centered my text box, but the way that these words are all lined up with one another is a little bit weird. I don't like how there's only one word at the bottom. I want it to be more even. So what I'm going to do is drag on this left rectangle. This will shift all the lines to take up as much space as you want. So as you can see right now, it's super, super thin, so only one letter can fit on each line. If I pull all the way out, then the entire quote fits on one line. I'm going to go somewhere in the middle, like that, and I'm going to drag this out to make it bigger, and I'm going to center that, and instead of dragging it over, I'm going to use the position tool. I'm going to click center. If I click off, you'll see that there is a really huge space between "When Life Gives" and "You Lemons." So I'm going to click on this text box and go into this spacing tool and change the line height a little bit to make it slightly closer together. So right now my design is pretty simple, but it gets the point across. I want to add a little bit more layering, so I'm going to add a white rectangle. So I'm going to go over to the Elements panel, scroll up to where the shapes are. So I'm going to drag this to only cover the part where the text is. So drag that out, resize it, and I said I wanted it to be white, so for now we're going to go with this white right here. Right now it's covering up the text. That's not what I want, so I'm going to change the position on it, move it backward, and I need to readjust this. So what I want is for the text to be in the very center of this white rectangle. So I'm going to highlight both the text and the rectangle. To do this, I'm just going to drag, and a dotted line will appear where the center of the nearest object is. So there we have everything aligned. So I think I am going to, first of all, group these two elements together so I can move them more easily. I'm going to move it down a bit. I'm going to move this website link up. And to move it up, you can drag or you can use your arrow keys on your keyboard. I'm thinking that this white box, I need to ungroup again, this white rectangle might be too white. So I'm going to try a different color. We're going to try a light gray. Maybe a dark yellow or light yellow. I decided on a light yellow background to match the lemons and the yellow that's already there so that there are not too many colors battling against each other in this graphic. Then I have adjusted the gray of the text a little bit. I wanted it to be darker so that it stands out more. And instead of going in and changing this website URL by itself, I can just click off and change all of the light gray to dark gray by just clicking that checkbox right there, and it'll adjust everything that was that color before into the color that you've now chosen. I think I'm not going to use that feature because I want there to be a hierarchy in color as well. So I want people to see the headline of the blog post first and then move on to the URL. And we do that not just by changing the font sizes and not just by putting the blog post first, but also making sure that the first color that you want people to see is the most engaging, and then their eyes will drift on to the lighter colors. I had also mentioned that I really liked that image where there was a slight color overlay over the photo. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. This lemons photo does already have that a little bit. If I go over to the photos panel, you'll see that this lemons is a lot brighter than the one that's in the background. That's because there is an effect on the background, and I can go in and adjust that. I can either use their effects, their preset effects that are in here, and their previews for each one of those, or I can use their filters, and these are like Instagram filters that you can add, or I can have a little bit more control and adjust using the adjustment panel. So I can change the brightness, I can adjust the contrast of the image. I think I want a low contrast but slightly brighter, and adjust the saturation. One trick that I like to use when I'm trying to figure out which direction I want to go is I take things all the way to the extreme so I can see, okay, at negative 100 saturation, it basically looks gray. At 100 saturation, it looks kind of orange. Do I want a more gray tint to my image or a more orangey, bright yellow tint? I want to go more with the yellow, so I'm going to leave it around there. You can add a tint to your image. I don't think I'm going to add a tint. I'm going to go ahead and just type in 0 to reset it to its default. You can add a blur, or you can add clarity to your image. I'm going to set this to 0 as well. Then you have X process and vignette, which adds a little border. I'm going to leave that at 0 as well. Now that I've added a little brightness to the image, I think that this yellow is a bit too dull. So I'm going to start off with the photo color. So this is the color of the lemons. And in new color, I'm going to go ahead and adjust this and make it slightly darker. One thing you should note as you are making your design is that design is a process. You've seen me go back and change my mind multiple times as I've made this, because as much as I have an idea in my head of what I want this to look like, I never quite know if it will look the way I want it to. And so I just go in and I keep adjusting and adjusting until I get it somewhere that I am happy with. I'm going to leave my image there for now. It's not my favorite graphic, and usually I would spend more time working on these, but for now, this is all right, and it gets the point across. There is a new blog post. It is called When Life Gives You Lemons, and you can find it at makinglemonadeblog.com, and that's all people need to know on Instagram.